What's up, everyone? Jared Sandler here with your spring training updates. Today's news, the big news, I guess, not good news. Jose Leclerc feeling some elbow discomfort. He's going to be out for an extended period of time. He has gone back to DFW to get further examination on that elbow. You know, one of the questions, and Chris Young, Rangers general manager, was the person who delivered that news. And one of the questions was whether or not Jose's performance has been impacted by that. And my guess is he didn't just randomly wake up today and have elbow discomfort. Sometimes in these cases, the deterioration of the physical ability maybe precedes the pain, and then the pain pops up. So my thought is he certainly was impacted by this. He didn't look right. It's what led me to ask Chris Woodward last week, is Jose Leclerc your closer? With the idea that he hadn't looked like a closer, and Chris Woodward gave the answer that, well, no, we haven't made a decision on that. Jose Leclerc in 2018 was unbelievable. 2019 was up and down. Okay. He had stretches where he was really good, and then he had stretches where I was like, eh. And then last year, he obviously was not very successful before he had the Terry's major muscle tear in the back of his shoulder. Right? The body's all connected, right? So I don't know how that injury has impacted this injury. That's, way above my pay grade. But that's not good news. Silver lining, it does create another opportunity for, one of these young arms to make the team. It seemed like a week ago when we were going through the lineup, there were thoughts that maybe one of Brett DeGus or Josh Spores would have to be left off. And now maybe there's room for both of them, or maybe the Rangers go in a different direction. Maybe Luis Ortiz, former first-round pick who's looked good, makes the team as a reliever. Maybe this opens the door for him there. As far as the back end of the game, I still think that it's Matt Bush who gets most of the save chances off the bat. Ian Kennedy will get some save chances as well, as he, I think will find his way on this roster. I think one reason why Matt Bush gets the edge over Ian Kennedy is simply because Ian Kennedy's got multi-inning ability that could be utilized maybe before the ninth inning, whereas I think they've made it clear they'd like to keep Matt Bush as a one-inning guy, especially considering he really hasn't pitched in not just one, but really 2 years with some injuries and some setbacks along the way in his path to recovery. So that's the update there. David Dahl was removed from a game today as a precaution. One thing I want to note about today's game, Nick Solak hit his 4th home run of the spring. It went to right field. Nick is a right-handed hitter. So for right-handed hitters, as backwards as this might seem, a right-handed hitter hitting the ball to right field is going the opposite way. Opposite field hitting for some guys is a strength, but maybe not opposite field power. One thing that stood out about Nick from when the Rangers acquired him a couple years ago is that he's always had success achieving slug, getting extra base hits the other way. And I went to look it up for 2020. He had 12 extra base hits last year. Obviously, 60-game season. Among those 12, 7 went to the opposite field. That was the highest opposite field extra base hit percentage in the majors among players with 10 or more extra base hits. It's small sample. So, over the course of a full season, is that going to bear out? I don't know. But point being, that's a strength of Nick's. The ability to drive the ball the other way for opposite field power. It's just something that stands out. All right, last thing I want to hit on today is the draft. We're going to talk about this more and more and more and more as the season progresses. One thing that I think is important to recognize here is that just because I'm seeing a lot of fanfare for Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter, because right now they're not only playing, but they're playing on a relatively big stage, certainly a bigger stage than, say, Jordan Lawler, the shortstop out of Dallas Jesuit. And they're doing great things. Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter are doing really, really good things. Just because the Rangers do or do not draft one of those guys does not guarantee anything, good or bad. I'm seeing a lot of people say, well, the Rangers better take whichever one doesn't get selected by the Pirates. Right now it seems like Kumar Rocker is the favorite to be the number 1 overall pick, but Jack Leiter's certainly putting up a fight for that. A couple of things. One, undoubtedly Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter are going to get to the big leagues quicker than maybe any of the other guys drafted in this draft, unless there's a big major conference college reliever who could come up, or later in the year for a playoff team that, maybe needs a guy who's throwing 100, if there's a Garrett Crochet type. But as far as starting pitchers or position players, they probably will get to the big leagues faster than anyone. I think it's important that, just like in the NFL, we talk about need versus best player available. Need is something that's not discussed as much in baseball, just because these guys aren't filling a need immediately. But I think best player available versus speed to the big leagues is something that's discussed, and that should not be, speed to the big league should not be a part of the equation. It's tougher as a fan to get as excited about, say, a Jordan Lawler who might need 4 years to become a big leaguer, or maybe 4 years to become like a guy who's got his feet wet as a big leaguer, whereas it might take a year and a half for Jack Leiter or Kumar Rocker. That shouldn't make the difference. If the evaluation is that Jordan Lawler is going to be a franchise type shortstop, whether or not that bears out, but if that's the evaluation, then any team is fully justified taking him over a pitcher if that's, their preference. Just because you're a college pitcher does not mean that you are going to be a smashing success. However, I do think it's fair to also recognize that Vanderbilt has a strong track record of developing pitchers. And that's a very tough conference in which to play, the SEC. So a lot to like. One thing that is sure is that the Rangers are going to be in a great position to add a guy who can really be a big part of this new wave of good teams. I think what's important is this. The Rangers don't need to come away with the best or the second best player in this draft 10 years from now when we look back, but they can't miss, right? It can't be a Dylan Tate situation. This has got to be a guy who is going to be an impact player at the big league level for the Rangers for at least, 6 years of control, if not more. Whether that guy's the fourth best or the fifth best player in the draft 10 years from now when we look back, that's not really going to matter. We're not going to knock the pick because they drafted the fourth best guy, not the second best guy. That still will be a success. Are you going to play man, it would have been cool to have this guy? Sure. But if you get the fourth best player, that means he's making multiple all-star games. You're going to be happy with him. You just can't miss. That doesn't mean you play it safe for a high floor, low ceiling guy, because you've got an opportunity to add a high floor, high ceiling guy. But it's going to be really fun to follow throughout the season and throughout the conversation where the Rangers end up going. There you go. That's our Rangers update. We'll have more draft talk as things progress. Talk to you guys soon.